Hello everyone, welcome back to the Ocarina of Time Dungeon Guide. Today we're going to be taking a look at inside Jabu Jabu's belly. This dungeon, of course, being one of the more strange dungeons you could possibly encounter within the Zelda franchise. I bet you weren't expecting to be inside a giant whale or a big fish for one of these dungeons in this game. But anyway, here we go. That first room right there goes pretty quickly. You just got to hit that switch hanging from the ceiling. It can be sort of annoying trying to deal with those Octoroks. Like, as you're trying to take the shot, they're just like constantly shooting you with their own attacks. But as you could see there, I was able to stand in between the two of them. And when you stand there, you're kind of too close for them and they won't attack you. And you can take your time and hit that thing hanging from the ceiling. This room right here has got quite a bit going on. One of those things being Princess Ruto here. We, of course, are in here to sort of save her. We're trying to get her out of Jabu Jabu's belly. But she's going to kind of, at first, refuse our help and then go fall down a hole somewhere. But aside from that, I did kind of want to take a quick second to take a look at this room. We will be following after her, but I kind of wanted to show off this green thing. It's sort of an important detail, or an important part to the Jabu Jabu dungeon, are these sort of slimy tails. And now that we've dropped down, there's Ruto again. And again, we can see that that slimy column extends through the floor. We can see it coming down through a hole right there. And then there's a balcony and a hallway that leads off somewhere up there. That's sort of our major goal right now. That's kind of what we're working towards, is how to get there. But anyway, that's sort of a long-term goal. In the short term, we're going to be talking to Ruto a couple of times, and eventually she will reluctantly allow us to carry her, which is kind of a funny way to be carrying a princess. You know, like heroes carry princesses in fantasy games and TV shows and whatnot, but I've never seen a hero carry a princess like this, like over their head. But anyway, this room is sort of tricky right here. It's got kind of a gotcha. So the important thing is that you really need to throw Ruto up on top of this section over here before hitting the switch. If you take her down there and you press the switch, she'll fall into the water and disappear, and she'll respawn back where you started, like back in that previous room with the green slimy thing. Here I'm demonstrating how you can throw Ruto and activate switches. Throwing Ruto is essentially like throwing, you know, a jar or a box. You can activate switches and actually damage enemies with her. This is kind of a funny little detail. And here we're in a bit of an interesting room where there's this Octorok. You can kill this Octorok. Again, you can reflect their attacks back at them with the Deku Shield, or you can kind of do what I'm doing right here and just sort of avoid all of the shots until this elevator comes down. Sort of a tricky little elevator. You probably wouldn't have expected that to just kind of come down on its own, but it does just kind of sit here and go up and down and up and down. And as we hop off of this elevator, we'll realize that we've been here before. I meant to mention it before, but that room is a bit of a crossroads of a room, if you will. We'll be in and out of that room a couple of times, even one more time in this dungeon before it's all over. And yes, there's the green slimy thing that I keep talking about. We'll kind of want to memorize which hole that green slimy thing is in, because here in a few seconds we're going to make it disappear, but we won't see it disappear in that room. We'll just come back and it's gone. So it'll be sort of important to know which hole to drop down, because that's sort of the goal, as I previously mentioned. This set of rooms and hallways can be really intimidating, pretty overwhelming. There's like 5 different ways to go, I believe. Some of them have the slimy things blocking them. Some of them have switches that you need to deal with. In any case, we're going to be getting the map here real quick, which will be a huge help. That switch back there was sort of a unique switch. I don't think there's very many of those in the game, where you need to be holding something in order to actuate the switch. You don't need to weigh it down. You just need to have something in your hands, in this case, Ruto. In this room here, we'll be fighting these stinger enemies, little stingray guys. You can kind of see their what is it, the dorsal fin of those guys kind of poking out of the ground, so you can kind of tell where they are. If you stand or kind of walk over them, they'll pop out and try to attack you. As you can see, I also used a Deku Nut there, which can sort of flush them out if you're having trouble seeing them. Having a little bit of fun there using Ruto to kill the last one. I think the easiest way is just to hit him with the slingshot, but you can also, if you're out of Deku Seeds, you can sort of bait them to attack you, and as they're flying at you, which is what they'll do to attack you, you can actually slash them if you're quick enough. Could be, the timing on that's kind of tough, but you can do it. And here we are collecting the Boomerang, which of course is the big item in Jabu Jabu's belly. It's a pretty fun weapon to use. You can do some interesting and creative stuff with it. You know, it doesn't always fly in a straight line. You can have it arc around obstacles, and believe it or not, you can actually use it to pick up items. I don't really know how a Boomerang can, like, pick up a bomb or pick up a rupee or something and then bring it back to you, but it is a thing in Ocarina of Time. In any case, we'll be moving on over here to the sort of opposite side of all these branching corridors in this room. This switch right here is one of those momentary switches. You need to weigh it down, so we'll just dump Ruto right there and just head on in. And here we go. This is a big deal. So this is like the end of one of those slimy tail things. And luckily we have the Boomerang now, which is required to fight these things. And these enemies can be pretty tricky to fight for the first time, because anytime you hit them, you'll see them kind of retreat into the ceiling. And if you don't realize it, like, you're the reason they'll come back down. If you hit it and kind of stand back and, like, wait for it to come back down on its own, I don't think it'll ever happen. In fact, what you need to do is you need to step forward and kind of get into its range. You almost need to, like, bait an attack, if you will. That's when they'll come down and you can continue with the fight. But yeah, I always found those enemies really aggravating as a little kid because I just didn't realize that I needed to get in there a little bit more, you know, or else the fight just doesn't really happen. Anyway, though, Ruto being real mad at us for leaving her here, but, you know, whatever. It is what it is. And as we can see here, just a second ago, before we killed the tail in that room, there was a slimy thing blocking this door right here, and now that we've killed it, we can actually get inside, which is pretty cool. That one parasite was actually blocking 2 doors. So we'll be checking out the other one here in a little bit. In this room, though, we're going to be taking out a bunch of bubbles. Interestingly enough, we get a timer. We have to, like, do it within 40 seconds. And as you can see, those Deku Nuts do a really good job at wiping those things out. I only had 2 nuts, however. Boomerang coming to our rescue and taking out the last one, which is nice. So yes, obviously the Boomerang does work if you don't have any Deku Nuts. Deku Nuts is just convenient. You can take out, like, 3 or 4 at one time, but... in any case, if you do take too long and that timer does run out, I believe all you have to do is just leave the room and re-enter it. I think that's how that works. Moving past that, though, we now have the map and the compass, so we can actually see what's going on in this crazy place. And we're going to be heading back over here. I believe this is one of the hallways that was blocked by the other end of the red parasite, the red slimy thing. And here we have another one. This one, however, is a slightly different color. You can kind of get an idea of, you know, which parasites, which slimy things are going to disappear by its color. I kind of see this one being the blue one. It's sort of blue, kind of. That parasite right there was blocking yet another one of those corridors in this previous room with all the branching pathways. It was actually blocking the centralmost one. We almost didn't catch a glimpse of this one. I believe when we first entered this, in this footage, you may have seen it briefly, but otherwise we really didn't look down this hallway at all, but it was sitting right here. Just trust me, I guess. In any case, here we are with the green one. This is the one we've been working towards this whole time. This room has a few extra enemies in it. These little beery enemies. I meant to mention previously that you don't want to slash these guys with your sword, because they'll electrocute you. As I accidentally get that rupee, that was pretty funny. But yeah, obviously now that we have the Boomerang, that's probably the most convenient way to take out those jellyfish. Before you have the Boomerang, however, you'll probably want to use like a Deku Stick, which is kind of a cool way to take out those guys. You know, the stick being wood, it's not conductive, so you don't get electrocuted. Whereas the sword being metal conducts electricity. I think it's a fun little detail. Anyway, though, now that we've killed that last parasite, that was the last one. We won't be seeing any more of those, thank goodness. We're going to be heading out back to this main room. And as you can probably expect, that green one is going to be gone. And again, this is kind of where you want to try to remember which one it was. It is this one right here. If you were to fall down through any of those other holes, you'll land somewhere down there and you have to get to go all the way around, which is pretty annoying. And entering this room over here, we're actually going to see the blue spiritual stone, the Zora Sapphire. If you missed it, Ruto was saying in her dialogue that she refused to leave until we found this. So we'll just lob her up there and allow her to collect that. And now that we're done with that section, we actually don't need to deal with Ruto anymore. She's actually going to kind of go away here until the end of the dungeon. So that's kind of nice if you found that section sort of, you know, annoying. Trying not to drop her in water or leave her somewhere. We don't have to worry about that now, so cool. This is actually going to quickly turn into a boss fight here. as we were approaching the elevator to hop up there and grab her and take her out of this dungeon. It's going to suddenly shoot up and replace her with a giant Octorok enemy. And this guy right here can be pretty annoying because there's some RNG involved with him. Basically what's going to happen is, as we throw our boomerang at him, it's going to stun him for a second. And after he's done being stunned, there's a 50-50 shot that he'll run towards us or away from us. What we want him to do is run away from us, and then we want to hit him with the boomerang before he gets out of range. And it's kind of tough, but I'll show you a method after. This is kind of like the intended way right here, right? And then there you go, he ran away and he was out of range before I reacted. But here you go, watch this here. What I'm going to do is intentionally get hit by him, which 100% of the time causes him to run away. So rather than deal with the 50-50 shot, you know, the coin toss of him spinning around, maybe he's going to come at you, maybe he's going to run away, just let him hit you, and then he's guaranteed to run off the other way, and it's much more predictable that way. And as you can see, I used jump slashes there, so it went real fast. I just had to hit him twice, and he was down before we knew it. And yeah, that fight actually went by so quickly. I feel like there was probably more I could have said during that boss fight. Obviously, when you hit him with the boomerang, his green weak spot appears, but I wanted to spend more time talking about how you can manipulate that fight to make it less annoying. And now that we're up here at the top of the elevator, we'll go ahead and break that center jar there and see that there's a fairy inside, which is nice. And since we're at this point in the game, you have to find a bottle in order to get this far in Ocarina of Time, so we'll go ahead and stash that fairy away in the bottle. And of course, if you didn't know how those guys work, how the fairies work, you can pop them out of the bottles anytime you want and get full health. But if you just keep it in the bottle, and if at any point you die, you'll actually be resurrected with full health, which is pretty nice, pretty convenient. Struggling a little bit in this room, I accidentally locked onto that Octorok when I meant to just turn the camera. So we'll go ahead and try that again. Obviously, as you hit these weird, wiggly red things, they'll be stunned and you can use them as platforms. Wiggly things being a common theme in Jabu Jabu's belly. This is the dungeon of wiggly things. As we step on this platform, it's going to go down and we're going to be in this familiar room. But I love the sound that platform makes. It just sounds like a spaceship going off. It's like... doosh. Like, what organ makes that noise? This big giant fish monster has a pretty interesting anatomy. Anyway, moving on though. Even though this is the third time we've been in this room, you may not have noticed that across that gap where that elevator was not previously, there's actually another way to go over here. Got another one of those momentary switches, so since we don't have Ruto anymore, we'll go ahead and use a box. Go ahead and weigh that switch down the old-fashioned way. And I do a pretty poor job showing off this room. I kind of wanted to see up and look at what's going on there, but I got got attacked by a jellyfish. I don't know where that guy came from. Anyway, the way this room works is there's one final locked door heading off to the boss fight of Jabu Jabu's belly. And in order to unlock that door, you need to activate this switch, but there's spider webs all over it. So the secret to that is making sure to lock onto that switch. If you just sort of just try to throw the boomerang just without locking on, when you throw the boomerang without locking on, it seems to go out straight first, and it's really hard to, if not impossible, to actually hit that switch. Whereas if you lock onto it, it arcs around real nice. Alrighty, so here we are, boss fight time. This is Barinade here. This is a much more complicated boss than we've seen so far in Ocarina of Time, whereas all of, King Dodongo and Queen Goma pretty much only had one phase. Barinade has like 4. This fight's going to start out by locking onto these, tubes that are connected to the ceiling here. There's 3 of them. They all go in one shot, so that's not too terribly bad. You kind of got to keep moving because those electric shots that just the lightning bolts that are coming from Barinade are pretty dangerous. And moving on to the second phase here, as you can see, there's jellyfish that pop out and they sort of orbit Barinade. Whenever you hit Barinade's body, they get stunned and you can walk over and you can hit them in pretty much any way you can think of, whether it's the boomerang or a slingshot, whatever. Moving on to phase 3 here. This one's kind of tough because it's difficult to get the boomerang through the tighter orbit of those jellyfish. Don't think to yourself that you can't get the boomerang through because it might bounce off a couple of times. Just be persistent, keep throwing, eventually it'll get through. Continuing to whittle down all of the jellyfish here. And moving on to the final phase here. Barinade is like completely mobile now. It can kind of fly all over the arena. It's quite quick too. It can be kind of difficult to catch up to it, so the boomerang, which almost feels slow now, you know. But once you hit it, Barinade will stop moving and you'll be able to get some damage in. And that was kind of funny right there. I knew I was kind of walking into a corner, but I thought that that volley wasn't going to last that long. I wanted to get some health from that jar. And then he just kept on shooting, so I ate some damage. It's okay, though. We do, of course, have that fairy, so we have plenty of health. As you can see, I'm trying to open with the jump slash because it deals a little bit more damage. Try not to spend too much time setting up for the jump slash, though, because then you're not really accomplishing anything. And as you can see there, just by strafing to the side, you know, moving somewhat perpendicular to the shots, Barinade pretty much won't have a chance of hitting you. He doesn't lead his shots at all, so he's always just shooting where you currently are at that moment. So again, just keep on moving. And if you do that, I think you'll be able to get through this no problem. So wow, there you go. That was Barinade, a very intense fight. I really like this one. This is probably one of my top favorite boss fights in Ocarina of Time. It's just the lightning shooting around and the sound and all the different phases, how you're constantly having to adapt and sort of tweak what you're doing. I think it's really, really cool. In any case, that was my dungeon guide on Jabu Jabu's Belly and Ocarina of Time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. Coming up next is going to be the Forest Temple. I hope you stay tuned for that, and I'll see you in the next one.